Andrea and Maria and Gerhard, I'd like to thank you for pushing through an extraordinary story. And I think you've done it very eloquently. Gerhard, you've tackled some really complicated issues, and I think you've presented them in a really simple way, which is great. What I'd like to now do is invite the panel. We've got a great assembly of Australian industry representatives here. And as I call you out, perhaps if we move through to the next slides, just to the panel session, please. As I call you out, if you wouldn't mind popping your camera on, and I would like to invite Maria, Gerhard and Andrea also to turn their cameras on. First of all, I'd like to introduce from the Australian cotton industry, Brooke Summers. Brooke oversees Cotton Australia's supply chain management strategy. She's been working as a communication specialist and a community engagement expert in the Australian agricultural sector for the best part of 2 decades, and specifically working in the cotton industry for 18 years. Brooke's been responsible for the development and implementation of Cotton Australia's marketing strategy and the multi-stakeholder projects. Cotton has a wonderful story to tell and an extraordinary reputation. So Brooke, thank you for joining the panel. Next, I'd like to introduce Mark. Mark Scott is from Woolmark. Now, you probably have all seen Woolmark. Mark's role is a project manager, and he oversees the group investment in traceability programs to support integrity along the wool supply chain. Ultimately, his mission is about driving value back to Australian wool growers. Mark's got a background in agricultural science, and he's been working with the Australian Wool Innovation Group for over a decade. We also have a man of mystery, not shown in the picture here, is Victor Topper, and I'm very pleased to have Victor along. Victor is the National President for the Australian Leather and Hides Exporters Association. He's been working in that capacity for some years, and he's been actively involved in the leather export industry for many, many years. Finally, on the panel, we have Rick, who is from Kmart and Target in Australia. Rick's been working with the organisation for over a decade, concentrating on creating value from sustainability. He's led the development and the implementation of Kmart's Group Sustainable Development Program, with a focus on policy strategy, partnering for development outcomes. And I will call out that Kmart has recently been ranked 10th in the world as far as the most transparent major fashion brands, which is a major change from the past. So congratulations to Kmart and for Rick, your role in that. That index covers more than 150 the world's largest brands. Kmart's also a signatory to the UN Fashion Industry Charter on Climate Action, etc. So with that, I'd like to open up with a question maybe to Brooke to start with. The cotton industry and the organisation representing cotton farmers is right at the beginning of the supply chain. So why is traceability so important for Cotton Australia, Brooke?
Thanks, Peter. Great question. I suppose it's really important for a number of reasons. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and our members are farmers who've been working really hard on their sustainability credentials for 3 decades now. So as a farmer organisation, I guess what we're looking for in terms of traceability is connecting our farmers with their ultimate customers, brands and retailers like Rick. Because in the past, we've sold our cotton that we've worked very hard to grow with the highest environmental and social standards. We've shipped it off to a spinning mill, and after that, we have absolutely no idea where it ends up. And it's absolutely in our farmers' interest to have that cotton end up in the hands of brands and retailers that share our values: quality, traceability, transparency, and above all, sustainability. And I guess as a farmer organisation, what we're looking for is how some of that traceability value can accrue to those farmers who've made huge amount of investment on their own properties over a really long period of time. Because at the end of the day, sustainable textiles start with sustainable farming, and we would love to see how these models might be able to help value accrue to those farmers in some way. So we can currently trace a bale of cotton from the paddock in which it was grown in Australia right through to the spinning mill. And we've got a couple of scientific traceability options available as well, like the Oratane technology, which is an elemental system. And we've sort of dabbled in a few pilots with blockchain. So we're really keen to understand more about this new model and these new guidelines to see how we can work in to get that true connectivity right from the farm to our customer. So I hope that answers the question, Peter.
Brooke, I might just ask you one more question before it maybe pass to Rick.
Sure.
So you're dealing with many brands and many retail customers.
Yeah.
What's your view on where they are in terms of the majority of these stakeholders? How far are they along on this traceability journey?
Well, I think that varies greatly depending on the brand, on their size, and whether or not they have a strategy behind their traceability. Most will say they want it. I think who pays is a really important question. Who pays for traceability? Where does the value accrue along the supply chain? And so I think it's really mixed. And I think the drivers for wanting traceability are really different too, depending on which brand you're working with. And certainly, some of the comments around not wanting to source cotton from Western China or from Uzbekistan, like those sorts of issues are coming into play now, and those issues will change as we move along. But also, I think what we're seeing is brands that really want to source from fully certified sustainable cotton farms. And I think that's becoming much more of a driver. It used to be country of origin was enough, but I think now more and more brands are wanting that really strong back to certified farm level traceability.
Thanks, Brooke. And maybe this is a great way to move to Rick. So Rick, can you tell us why traceability and transparency is important for Kmart? What are some of your priorities?
Thank you, Pete. Thank you for the nice introduction, and Brooke for your call out. I know Brooke and the Cotton Australia team very well, been great supporters of us over many years. So just quickly for, I guess, the international audience, so Kmart Group, Kmart and Target Australia, we have about 500 department stores across Australia and New Zealand. We've got a significant supply chain across Asia. We're primarily a direct sourcing business, and we also do primarily own brand as well. So we have significant influence over our supply chain, but of course, that presents risks and opportunities for our business as well. In terms of our sort of long-term commitments here, so we've got a sort of 10-year program around sustainability, and we've had a long-term commitment around transparency and traceability as well. It takes a number of forms. The publication of all of our tier 1 factories on our websites. We publish all our public targets and results on our website as well as working really hard on improving our traceability of all sustainable and other stakeholders. And, we get lots of questions, where are our products made? Are our sustainable claims and our products credible? Are the workers in our supply chain safe and being treated fairly? And increasing the environment as well. Are we proactively managing environmental impacts right down into our supply chain? And I think ultimately for us, this is about, back to our customers, we want our customers to be able to shop with confidence. They want them to be confident that we're a business that takes this seriously and is working on continuous improvement. Because, we don't have all the answers today. We're on a journey here to, improve all the time. And I think, ultimately it's pretty clear that, expectations on traceability, transparency are clearly growing globally and locally as well. Benchmark studies like Fashion Transparency Index. We've got the Baptist World 8 Ethical Fashion Report here in Australia as well as the standards being developed by UNECE and others. They're really helpful, I think, in driving the agenda forward and setting expectations around what good practice looks like, and lots of efficiency gains there that can be made for the industry as well, that they pointed out. So that's probably a bit of background. What I wanted to just touch on quickly is also just some of our priorities Peter mentioned, and some of the challenges, what some of the learnings for us as a retail business. So firstly, facility traceability. So we've got a commitment to trace and publish all our processing facilities in our apparel supply chain. So we've already published all our tier 1 factories, but we're trying to go deeper than that now. There's a range of drivers for that. Human rights, modern slavery is a big one. We want to make sure we don't have facilities that are sort of moving into, high risk regions of the world. Of course, first step in understanding conditions in the facilities to know where they are as well. So if we want to go the next step with audits and visiting facilities, we need to know where they are. And then touching on the environment as well, a lot of our biggest environmental impacts, use of water, chemicals, energy, carbon emissions, it's deeper down the supply chain. You've got to know where your fabric mills are, for example, wet processing facilities. So traceability is really, really, really important. That's a project we've been driving hard on. Challenges, roadblocks for us, we're still on this path. Beyond the tier 1, we're still quite Excel driven, a lot of manual data capture and validation of sort of third-party assessment reports. We have looked at a lot of the big, IT solutions, lots of great, programs out there to enhance traceability and transparency, but nonetheless, they're quite, it's a big system integration piece. There's no quick fixes in the market. You've got to really commit to it and implement the new systems. And it's certainly a path we'll go down as we move along. And I suppose the other challenge I'd call out, as most in the industry will know, the deeper you go in your supply chain, the more challenging it becomes in terms of your influence and so forth. We don't, have direct contractual relationships right down the supply chain, so we have to really work in partnership with others and the whole industry. The last challenge I'll talk about is materials traceability. So we've made some pretty ambitious commitments around 100% sustainable materials. Cotton, we've done a lot of work there already. Recycled polyester, responsible cellulose, various forms of plastics as well. And really, growing customer expectations is driving that. And of course, our biggest impacts in terms of environment and people are often in the materials that we use, the traceability. Challenges robust there. Look, still, again, we're trying to move beyond sort of base checks and facility audits, these kinds of things. It's a good start, and it's vital to meet some consumer law requirements, but efficiency-wise and accuracy, it's not ideal. More and more, what we're trying to do is look at DNA and forensic testing technology to manage risk. And then I think the holy grail is your blockchain technologies. And we've had a look at some of the systems there, and it was great to hear the example today. We can see a lot of them are in the pilot phase, huge potential. And now we just probably need to see them start to scale up. And that's when it will have a huge impact. Over the next 5-10 years, blockchain will really revolutionize this field, I think. So look, I'll stop there and hand back to you, Peter, and I'm happy to take further questions.
Yeah, Rick, and for anyone who's dialed in today, obviously, please use the chat channel. If we can't get to questions, etc., we'll certainly make a note of them and ask the presenters and the panelists to provide some feedback for you. I'd like to shift a little bit to talk about the leather industry. Victor, if you're still with us, because I know Victor's got to step out and get a vaccine shot, and no one's going to stop anyone from that at the moment. Victor, I think you had a question for the UNECE team. Are you still with us?
Just to Maria, what does the pledge commit organisations to do, and who is involved?
About the sustainability pledge, the call to action, right? That we have launched as part of the project. Okay. Yes. Basically, the idea of the call to action is to call on all industry actors, the company, business associations, NGOs, governments, to commit on the implementation of the approach and the standard developed under the project. We fully understand that, of course, the approach and the standard, the business and data model developed under the project are very ambitious, are very comprehensive. It's very difficult, let's say, to commit to put them in place 100% and quickly. So this is really to be seen more like a journey. Therefore, what we ask is a commitment in terms of taking that journey and let's say start by putting in place even, let's say, part or a share of that approach and that standard. Now we have started to receive pledges from companies, from business associations, and that will be, let's say, a mechanism that we want to put in place as part of the project. First of all, to show to the industry what is in place, what is going to be in place, and to provide a mechanism for facilitating, the sharing of lessons learned or good practices, and publish, let's say, a sort of a regular report on a biannual basis on how traceability and transparency are done and how the UNEC, UNC-FACT approach and standard are coming into place. So that's the idea of the call to action and the sustainability pledge. And it's open. We invite company and these industry actors to reach out, to commit and to share.
Thank you for that, Victor. And I know you've got to go and get a vaccine. So
thanks
with us if you can.
You.
Mark, what about the wool industry? I know you had we were chatting earlier. Are you okay to throw your question up, please?
Yeah, sure, Peter. Thank you. And thanks to Maria, Gerhard and Andrea for the presentation. I found it very interesting, and there's certainly things we can apply to our own traceability initiatives here. So my question it concerns the importance of accuracy of information. So we know consumers are demanding a more sustainable product. And Maria, as you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, they don't always trust the information they're getting. With these demands, we've seen a move to labelling and transparency to create more informed decision. And with this move comes some risk of labelling being based on immature methodology that may capture negatives, but not all the positives. So for example, biodegradability and renewability appear to be missing for wool and other natural fibres in some major labelling policy development. The examples, the EU's product environmental footprint labelling. So with this in mind, do you still see the outlook for Australian natural fibres to benefit from this move to more product regulations and labelling?
Yes, I do. I do see actually that benefit. What is important is that let's say clear criteria around and performance indicators to make the assessment for natural fiber contents are made clear, are standardized, and criteria are, as much as possible are reflected into regulation and standards that are used at the global level. So at the in the EU, as mentioned, there is this effort to produce a European product passport that defines common criteria when it comes to sustainability performance, including on natural fibers type of content. That kind of criteria create, let's say, certainty, a legal certainty as well around the requirements. So I would say that it's important, to go as much as possible towards common standardized criteria and performance indicators. And policymakers and regulators there play a very important role, because what we have seen defined, the industry made an effort to go in that direction, but that effort has been not sufficient, has created confusion and fragmentation. Too many different labels, too many different standards. We need to have that level playing field and that common criteria and standards that do create that legal certainty.
That's excellent. Thanks, Maria. No, it does. It's certainly complicated to get the common ground, but capture the nuances of all the individual, fibres and products. But no, thank you.
Maria, if I may, there was another question that came in earlier from the Department of Agriculture and Water and Environment in Australia. It was about, is there an intent or an appetite from industry to use recycled content in textiles and label as such for customer information? Sort of what are the challenges that you're seeing, particularly in Europe, around the use of recycled content in product? And could you share an update on where you think that's moving at the moment?
Well, I mean, at the policy and regulatory level, at least in the EU, with the Circular Economy Action Plan and the textile, the garment and footwear identified as a priority sector for the circular economy transition in the EU region, certainly there is an encouragement to go towards, value retention in the value chain, and therefore the use of recycled fibers, recycled materials. The industry is starting to explore on that, and as part of our project, I think Andrea mentioned it, in the cotton blockchain pilot, we had one of the brands, the Vivian Westwood, that has decided to test a claim on the use of 100% recycled cotton for the production of denim, so an outfit, jeans, a pair of jeans. So there is that appetite, there is that push at the policy regulatory level. Hard to say where this is going and how fast that is going. I'm not able to give you an answer on that yet, but certainly, I mean, claims on use of recycled content and material, I think there is a need to make sure that they are valid, they are fully verified, they can be trusted. And therefore, I think, again, traceability, transparency play a role because consumers are expressing that demand for verifiable and trusted information when it comes to claims.
Maria and members of the panel, Gerhard and Andrea, I'd like to thank you for that interaction. I think Brooke might come back a little bit later in the next session, but particular thanks Rick and Victor also. Victor, we often don't get the opportunity to talk about the leather industry, and we are aware there's some really fabulous things happening around traceability, so kangaroo hide, etc. And lots of opportunity ahead for Australian industry. So if I could just thank the panelists for their contributions today and their questions. And as I mentioned, if anyone else on the call has questions of the panelists or the presenters today, please forward them either in the chat channel or via an email to us, and we'll endeavour to get answers for you today. Maria, Gerhard and Andrea, thank you again for some fantastic content. And I think the keynote messages that you raised today around, industry can't really do this on their own. They do need a policy framework, I think has come through very clearly.